Did you hear?
You want to make sure you're all right.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, March 29, 2018, Policy and Procedure Committee. Call the roll, please.
Phillips. Stuckey.
Here.
Sure.
Here.
Aaron.
Here.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Bill seconds, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comment. No public comment. Committee chair reports. Mr. Bills.
Yeah, the highway department's gonna be opening up some bids for some, road work that need to be done. We did resolutions on last month, so we're heading the right direction, so hopefully get some good bids.
Judicial's going to be just regular stuff, and management, we're going to talk a little bit more about the room assignments, and then talk about the jail parking lot, see what, get that let for bids.
Mr. Sticknoff, tax.
At this point, just department head reports unless something comes up between now and couple days.
Anita has developed some information about animal control, new forms for processing that. That'd be something you might want to
Yes,
get together with her after the meeting this morning.
I have already seen that, so
Okay.
yeah.
Very good.
We can discuss that too.
Good. Good. Mr. Stacy,
Yes, sir.
you want to give us your report?
I guess I suppose. My activities as of late, I think, are obvious. I've been working on a lot of flooding issues, even after the water's gone down. I have a lot of work to do, so we've been doing that. We finished our preliminary damage assessment with the IEMA, FEMA, and SBA teams last week on Thursday. The numbers from that are 355 affected, 217 minorly damaged, 97 major damaged, 1 destroyed. That is throughout Iroquois County. They take these numbers in addition to a narrative that was typed up, my narrative and their narrative that they typed up, and then we'll see if the state makes that request to the federal government for a presidential disaster declaration. And then if they do that, we'll see what the federal government decides. So that is where we're at with individual assistance. In terms of public assistance program, that tabulates public costs and damage. Right now, my numbers throughout Iroquois County for different entities, townships, cities, and so on and so forth, we're looking at over $600,000 in cost and damage. And I estimate that those are actually higher now. As time goes, more problems are found on roads or whatever infrastructure systems or continued debris pickup. So, however, I do not expect that one to go anywhere. I will submit my numbers to the state. We have well over met our minimum number that we need to reach for Iroquois County, but the state needs to reach 18.7 million. Thankfully, I don't think we're going to get that high just here in Iroquois County alone, and I don't think the state's going to get that high either. So, muck-out operations are still ongoing. We have, as of Tuesday, over 130 homes that still need muck-out. So, I'm working on organizing to get some more volunteer crews trained on the 6th, and then have another large work day on the 7th. So we can try to help out the organization that's been helping us out, Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, to get more muck-out done. So that way those people can eventually go home. Let's see. And I've been working with the Long-Term Recovery Committee. They have a number of different subcommittees, so on and so forth. And I'm working with the National Weather Service to host a severe weather tabletop exercise, something they would like to do and like to host and operate, would be advantageous. I don't have a date on that yet, and I've started working on updating the hazardous material response plan and hazard mitigation plan. Questions about Brandenburg?
Mr. Bills, you have something?
Eric, you was talking initially about the travel with IEMA, FEMA, SBA, where they're looking at taking these numbers, and you got these numbers now. These numbers, do they put this in regards to percentage of the population? Percentage of dollar values that, or is it because you also come back later and say, well, they're looking for how many dollars? Do they look at that dollars based off of percentage of total dollars that's available in a given area? Or are they just looking at total numbers of population and not concerned that there could be sitting in a 7 million populated area versus a 25,000 populated area?
That's a good question. Let me grab it real quick. Okay, now I'm prepared to answer that.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
There are two separate programs which I've been working on. The numbers, when I talk about public or government or cost and damage, that's public assistance. And that is strictly a numbers game. We have to reach 108,000, and then the state has to reach 18.7 million. Then we can request. And like I said, that one I don't think we're going to meet. When it comes to individual assistance, that's actually not just numbers. That's why I mentioned that there's a narrative to that. And in that narrative, we talk about the impact to the economy, how many people were not able to go to work, demographics of the community, what percentage we think we have disabled or elderly, how local schools are impacted, mass transit, and so on and so forth. We do have those numbers of how many we think were damaged along those categories of affected, minor, major, and destroyed. To be honest, I don't know exactly what makes those criteria for those categories. That's something that FEMA handles, and they don't teach me that. So I can't tell you what that means, and FEMA and IEMA actually do not look at a dollar amount per home. SBA does. I know, thank you personally for working with my SBA crew that I sent over to your business. But they do that just because they're strictly looking at categorizing their damage in terms of dollars per assessed business or home. So if a home was worth $100,000, it needed to reach like 40% damage in order for it to be a major to SBA. But what they don't do in comparison to other disasters is say, well, Iroquois County had 20% of their homes damaged, Houston, Texas had 30% of their homes damaged. They don't do that, unfortunately. There's no set formula. It's partially political.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like it's probably on total number of counts, and because total number of counts make a difference on who gets voted in and who don't.
It could be, but also it leaves room for the narrative to help explain the situation, and in that narrative we get to tell you, this is our third flood in 3 years.
Right.
This is our fourth major flood in 10 years, so on and so forth. So it's not just a numbers game when it comes to individual assistance program.
We'll try to exercise patience and see how things come out.
Isn't that tough?
Come down the road later and address the real problem.
Indeed.
For what it's worth, Spring Creek is coming out of its banks this morning.
You know, good. I was starting to get bored.
Yeah.
On that note, I am not expecting any residential flooding with forecasted rain. I'm sure that is a concern in the public at large. And I am keeping an eye on it, and at this point in time, I'm not expecting any troubles. Perhaps field flooding, but certainly not helpful to the farmers that are hoping to get into the field soon. What's your timeline? This afternoon or 3 weeks from now?
2.5 weeks.
Well, I'll see what I can do for you. I will say, I did talk to the National Weather Service about trying to gauge exactly, scientifically, what what level flood this was. Was it a 100-year flood? Was it a 50-year flood? They told me, using this specific gauge 2 miles northwest of town, looking at the rainfall, it was a 25-year flood. Which does not make sense to me because there's a couple factors that I don't think they included. One, they're looking at a downstream gauge as opposed to an upstream, and they did not include the snow melt. So, but that means that this flood was probably more of a 50-year flood, maybe just less than a 100-year flood, maybe not even quite a 100-year flood. We're seeing this magnitude, so.
Well, I think it really depends on different geographical areas, because there's other issues that come into play when the water is flash flooding.
Indeed, sir.
And so, yeah, in my neighborhood, knowing what the FEMA elevation is, I'd say they're probably pretty close to being right on the 0.5 year, because the elevation number they had for the area was a good strong number.
Okay, I guess, anyone else have any questions for Eric? Thank you, sir.
I have, these are the disaster-related claims. I finally got those typed out. Have a few claims from animal control. One from Hills Portable Sanitation. We had to get 4 porta potties and Fastenal, but we haven't exactly decided who was going to pay the Fastenal bill. That was for personal protective equipment. But here are the claims. Would you like to talk about these after the meeting or during the meeting?
We'll talk about it when we get to the claims section on the agenda.
Sounds great.
Do they have a comment on claims?
No, he hasn't. He just presented them now.
Oh, so we're not going to be approving them today.
Next item on the agenda talks about the Finance Committee minutes from the meeting on March 8th. As you know, at the last board meeting, those minutes were not approved. Raised a couple questions in a few people's minds, because we hadn't encountered that situation before. I talked with Mr. Devine about it. He did some research. I'll pass this around. This is his response. You can look at it somewhat quickly, and so we can get moving along here. But I think basically what he's saying, and it does, to me, it may not address the whole matter completely, but he's saying because there was nothing transacted at that meeting, it's kind of a non-event. The fact that the minutes were not approved. But it's something that obviously could arise again in the future. It's something that none of us were familiar with the proper procedures of what to do should something like that come up. And I'm not sure we have a complete answer for that either, but nevertheless I wanted to look at it here so that we didn't just let it go unattended or what have you going forward. Anybody have any comments about it?
I don't understand, I don't understand why it happened, but probably many other people don't either.
Well, you can speculate on why it happened, but the fact that it did happen is more of the concern that I have, so that it can be handled in the proper way should it ever happen again.
Well,
There are things, there is some research that I did, which you can look at later if you want, but basically it says that minutes should always be approved. It says that corrections should be made if necessary to the minutes, and then they should be approved. In this particular case, I think Mr. Devine is saying that because nothing was transacted at the meeting, it wasn't necessary to go through that step or that procedure. But
I guess my question would be, if they weren't approved, did they become part of the permanent record, or are they just non-existent now?
well, he says they're non-existent, it's a non-event. Isn't that what he's saying?
So any information that was put forth there, there's no record of it. I mean, just because there wasn't a quorum, it still happened.
That's correct, there was discussions on various topics, but there was no action taken.
Right.
They couldn't take any action. Had they had a quorum and taken action on things and then the minutes not be approved at the meeting, that would have been a completely different situation.
So any reports that were given won't be recorded in the minutes. So should they if there was some financial report given at that, do they need to re-give that report at the next meeting to get it into the official record?
That perhaps would be the right way to do it. He sent this to me yesterday,
Yeah.
late in the day, so I really haven't had time to talk to him about it.
So I'm just,
I think these questions perhaps need to be explored further.
because we've run into places where we go back in the minutes looking for something and it's not there. Well, this stuff, whatever they brought up at that meeting was discussed, and in this case, no action was taken, but there is no record of it if it's not recorded.
Normally, when you're going back in the minutes, though, you're looking for something on which action was taken.
Yeah.
But I understand your point. I guess it's something that should be explored a little bit further. Unfortunately, he's not here this morning, but.
It was totally a non-event, he said.
Correct.
Non-event.
Does that mean they don't have to get paid for coming?
Well, the thing is, any board member claim that being on the meeting, have to put a credit memo in on next month, because you can't get paid for something that really didn't happen.
I mean, the state's attorney is your legal advisor, but I don't agree with it being, that it didn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is,
Should
there
still be
was
done.
factual information that was stated. You cannot just wipe out factual information. What was about the report, the bottom line question is, what was about the report that they give a bunch?
Right. Well, there's two questions. One is what you're saying. The other question is, what is the proper procedure, which, from what I've been able to determine, is that if there's an objection to the minutes, it needs to be corrected. It should have been corrected in the board meeting. People who voted no shouldn't have voted no. They should have made a motion for some correction to be made to the minutes.
What was wrong in the minutes that needed to be corrected? It's,
Well,
We
if
don't know why they
if
voted
there isn't
that.
any correction to be made in the minutes, then the minutes are approved. That's what goes on.
Yeah, we talked
in
about
that way.
budget and where we're at and other budgetary issues. And then there was a conversation about, well, gee, if we're going to be short here, I can give up a little bit here because I'm not going to be using this money based off the way things are going. And, there's those type of conversations, which was all factual information. No action was taken on. Never said we're going to do it this way, that way, or the other way. We just took information. And so it never made no sense to me. And reading through the report, there might be a couple words somewhere in a paragraph that somebody didn't like, but it has not been highlighted to me.
And if there was anything, they should have pulled it for separate consideration, corrected it, voted on it.
That's something I think we need, as I said, we probably need to dig into a little bit more, because if it should ever come up again, there's some of the things that are in Robert's Rules of Order don't exactly mirror what we do in our meetings, and so where we differ, how we handle that is always maybe always be a bone of contention among certain people, but it is what it is.
Well, I mean, if there are things that we
But I've got some more information here if you want to look at it later.
If there's things that we know we consistently do different from Robert's Rules of Order, then at the reorganization meeting, we need to, when we adopt Robert's Rules of Order with these amendments, because we can do that.
Okay, but see, one thing that Robert's Rules of Order, if I understand it correctly, is that you don't vote to approve the minutes. The chairman of the meeting brings up the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are, people make motions, those motions are approved or not. And then the chairman simply says the minutes are approved as corrected or as presented. And that's it, you don't vote. We always vote. We vote to accept the committee reports, which largely is accepting the minutes of the meeting. That's not, well, I don't find that in Robert's Rules of Order, but I'm not an expert on that either.
So, that's the case, you're saying if we're not spending any money on a committee report, there's no vote required. The chairman can.
Some of these questions I think we need to delve into a little bit more if we want to be exactly correct on how we do things. You know, heretofore, nobody's raised any objections or been any problems, but over the last year or so, that seems to be the mode of operation here, so. We can dig into that a little bit further. I think that probably is what we need to do, and have Mr. Devine here to maybe answer questions. Maybe he needs to dig into it a little bit more. I don't know.
At the next county board meeting, when we approve the minutes of the last meeting, what will be in it that we approve? Will the finance report be in it, or was
Well,
it not?
currently the finance report is in it,
It was a non-event.
because nobody said, don't put it in it. I'm pretty sure there have been reports in the past that haven't been, that didn't get approved.
And if what John's saying is correct, that according to Robert's Rules of Orders, the chairman can say approved, then he can just say it's approved because we voted to follow Robert's Rules of Orders. So,
The chairman asks if there are any, you've read the minutes, are there any corrections to the minutes? So if somebody has an issue, whatever it might be. In other words, you're not, when you approve the minutes, you're not voting for what you like in the minutes or not. You're voting this is what happened. The minutes are a record of history. And you're voting to approve what occurred and put that in the record. That's it, and that's it. You're not saying, I don't like it. I mean, if you're gonna spend $10 to do something and you don't think you should do that, that's not the time to say no. I mean, if the committee approved it, you're approving what the committee did. But we haven't operated that way. People have historically, if they didn't like something, they would vote no. Now, I don't know, we can speculate why the vote went the way it did the last one. That's not the point. The point is, what's the proper procedure for us to follow going forward? So, I think it's something that probably we need to dig into. So, I can have some further conversations with Mr. Devine, and perhaps we can have him at our meeting, next meeting, and delve into it further. So, okay. Next on the agenda is motion for executive session.
How about the job description?
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Job description for the 911 director. Pass that around to everybody. Pass that around to everybody. Okay, what you got with the paperclip on it is some information that Anita put together, job descriptions for other individuals in the organization. The one that's by itself is one that I put together as what I would consider somewhat of a starting point regarding the responsibilities of the matter. I think all of you have received a copy of the job description that was approved by the ETSP. So I didn't prepare a copy of that for you this morning. If you'd like to look at a copy of this while we're talking about Eric, you're welcome to do that.
Great, thank you.
If you want to join us at the
Yeah.
table here.
Oh, good.
I got mine.
You hope it's the same as mine.
No, that's what, I've got a copy of my job description.
Oh, yours.
I will say this, the board did not approve this job description. They voted to send it to AMP for any corrections or additions.
So it needs to go back to them.
So it will still need to go back to ETSB for approval. They wanted to send it to all of you to get any additional information. At the time when this was sent, obviously, the Joint Dispatch union contract was not signed. It was still in the air completely because it was out for arbitration.
It hasn't been signed yet, Barry.
Right. And it hasn't been signed yet, but there's a little bit more work that's been done towards that while this was written.
Okay, what's held together here with the paper clips that Anita prepared, these are job descriptions for other individuals in the county, which can be used as a pattern. What I did was put something together that largely addresses the responsibilities of the position. A couple of things that
This particular.
yes. So let me just explain to you what I did first, which differs a little bit from what was before. First of all, it's the Iroquois County Emergency Telephone System. What Eric had put together also had the word board on it, and that's really not technically correct. I also put down there for the job description, it's the ICOM director. That's the job title that's used in the telecommunicator contract. So I think we need to be consistent with that also. If that's not the correct job title, then maybe the contract needs to be changed. But one way or another, we need to be consistent with that language also.
So that would be the language that we have on our agenda.
We're everywhere. So anyway, what I listed on the sheet here, first of all, is that the ICOM director reports to the ETSB board. And then briefly, as you can see, it's intended not to go into a great amount of detail. There's a lot of latitude involved with some of these things, different areas of responsibility that maybe don't need to be specifically stated. I did not include some of the things that go beyond the responsibilities, such as education and job requirements and so forth. But I felt like that the responsibilities is the main meat of where we have input. So most of the rest of the stuff is pretty standard. The first item on what I put together, item A, is that he reports to the ETSB board. Everything else from D through I comes out of the ICOM contract, telecommunicator contract, excuse me. Their management rights, except for number I, which is included in the front part of the contract. In section 1.2, bargaining unit work, subparagraph B, says the ICOM director may perform telecommunicator duties, so it's essentially what's stated here. The reason I put this together that way is, again, I think that the job description for the ICOM director needs to be in line with or mirror what's in the telecommunicator contract. If we don't do those things, then they'll come out of the contract, and we work hard to get them in the contract to assure things would be done the way, and this is the negotiating committee that I'm talking about, but the way that we felt should be done. Management rights is a big item of discussion, and also about this subparagraph I here about working on the radio was another one that's very important, and the reasons I think are identified there. So then item J I put in there, which again I think is very important, but it's not a part of the telecommunicator contract of cooperating with public safety agencies. And I think that really goes beyond the county agencies. I think that we need to cooperate with all public safety agencies across the state. And the main purpose of that would be ensuring that our personnel are trained and competent in the communication protocol and so forth. So We had this on the agenda for some time now, and it's been tabled because we hadn't had time to get to it. There's a lot here. Maybe what we need to do is to take this and try and digest this material and bring it to a vote at our next meeting. Does that make sense?
Well, do we want to vote to send it back to their board and let their board approve it?
Well, I think what we want to do is what we've come up with would be a recommendation to their board of what we think are ingredients that we think should be in that job description and if necessary, the reasons why or whatever. Yes, it's their responsibility to do that. They asked us for our input and comment, which I think is fine, especially since the telecommunicators are county employees and we're responsible for negotiating the union contract. We have a lot of say-so in what goes into that, what can be done and what can't be done. So it all ties together in my mind. So.
And I think that was honestly what the goal was at that point as well. They want to make sure, because I am supervising county employees, ultimately you guys do need to have some say-so as to what's happening with them and the input and the level of input that I have to them.
So I guess my feeling on it is that we would take this and study it, hopefully, over the next month. And when we come back at our next meeting, we can finalize whatever we want to do and so forth, and then from there. But, Eric, you have the opportunities. You can see what my thinking is on the thing and what Anita's put together, so your input at the next meeting would be valuable also.
Thank you.
I will say this, I think that the less complicated the job description is, the better it is, because I think it provides latitude for situations that may arise that can't always be identified, things that happen in the future. And yet at the same time, I think it provides a framework for operation that makes sense. So.
Initially, when I wrote this, obviously, as you all can see, it's a lot in the first place. And it was mainly when I wrote it, I was still very, very new to the position.
Right.
So some of it may just need to be exited from it and have some revamp, especially with these additional suggestions that may be able to shrink quite a bit and
there may even be
get more to the
possible to
point.
shrink down some of the other ones that Anita submitted as examples. None of this is perfect, so it can always be improved upon when conditions and situations dictate. So, do you have anything you wanted to add, Anita?
No, I would recommend Eric come down to my office. There are some things that are in there in terms of like physical requirements that could get us into ADAA issues and human resources issues. So we should talk about that.
Absolutely.
Whether or not they're truly required to do the job. Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there any further comment or questions on that matter? We can move on to the next item on the agenda. Entertain the motion to go into executive session. Is there a second?